Hello everyone, I'm Nathan ZLOMKE. I'm going to be presenting with you today, and I performed the analysis with AmeriCorps Inc. combating money laundering using data analytics. I'm actually going to turn my video off as I don't want to take up the space of the slides, but I did want to say hi real quick. Background before we jump in. AmeriCorps has decided to take a proactive approach against money laundering for compliance purposes, as well as having a competitive edge and gaining customers' trust. Mr. Peterson has had the idea to have some surveillance on customers on a per customer basis to create profiles and basically have baseline data to make comparisons against any irregular activities we would see that could be money laundering. And so AmeriCorps leadership has advised us anything for the company we will analyze, anything over $500,000 would be highly suspicious. And so we're going to take a look. But just to recap, the purpose of this analysis is AmeriCorps requires upgraded surveillance of their systems in hopes of maintaining that competitive edge against competitors and criminals alike, as well as the ability to compare baseline transaction data and make accurate predictions. Jumping into the analysis now, before we were able to actually process the data, we needed to do some data wrangling just to clean it up a bit and wrangle out any outliers that were going on. And so December of 2007, we can see that was when we had the store flooding issue. That wasn't wrapped up until February of 2008. So this was omitted from our analysis as these are clearly outliers in the data. Back in 2010 as well, that warehouse sold for around $38,000. This was subtracted from this $494,000 figure in order to normalize that data and make accurate comparisons across the different groups. So that was subtracted from that so that we could go ahead and make comparisons. Likewise, we had erroneous data. Looks like some typos in some cases, other cases maybe some data conversion issues. So yep, you can see them highlighted, but we had to omit those from. Also in that November drill down tab in the Excel file that was attached, you can see looks like some more data conversion issues in that column, so that was omitted from analysis, as well as some figures that are way above any norm. I mean, they're in the trillions of dollars, and so AmeriCorps says you guys operate around $40 billion, but you know, on your way to the trillions, but I think this was a typo, so we went ahead and omitted these from analysis as well. And this is the November roll-up, so I just wanted to introduce how this was categorized. And so you can see the coding key. We were able to extract the code from the transaction ID and categorize them to stratify against outgoing, canceled, or incoming wires. And after we grouped them, we're able to make the aggregation. And so incoming wires minus canceled incoming wires left us with $358,000 plus. And if you're interested, there's the formula that we used in order to perform this analysis. So jumping straight in, this is a normality distribution of the monthly aggregates of incoming wire transfers going on. Looking at that normality curve, I'll highlight it with a laser pointer. Looking at this right here, we see it's mostly normal. However, over here, we're already seeing this number, this $500,000 number that we were told we should be highly suspect of. However, we see it just within our 95% normality curve. And so that's kind of raising the red alarm already. If this was a very highly suspect number, we should not see this in our normality curve. It should be an outlier far outside of that, but we do see it within the curve, which means it is somewhat within their operations, And following this normality line, just the further away from the line you are, the more of an outlier or irregular you are from the operations. And so we see this $500,000 range of data is a bit outside of the normal operating numbers we would normally see in their day-to-day operations. So we're seeing some spikes in data, spikes in values that we wouldn't normally see. That's going on. And so this is another analysis we performed. It's one-way ANOVA testing, and it's basically just how do we compare the months across from each other? Are there certain months that are different from one another? Within each month itself, there is some variation that goes on, which is just normal everyday variation. Not every month is going to be the same. But in order to compare January to February, for example, is the difference between those months more significant than the variation within the months themselves? And so we're going to, in this next slide, before we do, I did want to give an example of a case. This is the year being compared among the different years. And this is a case of no statistical significance. And so we see they're all fairly within the same global mean of one another. And we see that this is not less than 5%. It's well over that. And so we see a normal mean that's typically governing the year-to-year operations. However, when we look at month-to-month, there is some significant variation across the different groups. From this initial test, we don't quite know which months they are. We can have a best guess, but we can't statistically back it up. And so in order to do that, we use this test that's called a Dunnett's test. That's just a follow-up test from the initial ANOVA, but it's basically making a comparison against a control group. And so the control group here, we selected April. April was close to our mean value on the global mean, not too far from that, and it had a very tight distribution. And so low variability, pretty reliable number, and so we selected that as our control group. And you can see highlighted in that red square is August and December. So right here with the laser pointer, here's August, which is a high group, and you see some of these $500,000 numbers. And then down here is December, so significantly lower, and August significantly higher. Perform one more follow-up test. It was the ZLOMKE test, and similarly it showed us that February, August, and December are significant months. February over here, I don't think much is going on over there. I think it's just some outside the norm variation going on, but I don't suspect it of anything. However, August, it does seem like they're receiving some significant inputs going on that are outside their normal range of activities. And then in December, perhaps dumping some funds into a different account. So this could be like a shell account that's, just money funneling in and funneling right back out. It could be that, or it could be some legitimate natural events going on that we just need to dig into more. So this is a visual representation of what we just looked at. So we can see the different years across the bottom, ordered in order by month. And so highlighted in those dashed ones are just those peaks we see, and we see most of them fall in the months of August. And then this red line you see is just kind of the average aggregate over time, and you can see it's fairly flat. It ebbs and flows, but all in all, over the years, it doesn't change too much, which is interesting. I mean, for a business, we would hope that it would actually be aggregating and accruing money over time, but it's staying flat, not doing too spectacular, but I guess staying afloat. And so I do want to mention we did attempt to make a prediction equation, we determined it wasn't powerful enough to actually be predictive. It only had one input variable, which was month, and yeah, it did predict somewhat well, but I would say we need a few more input variables to make it more powerful. This was done using logistic regression. So I do want to jump into our November 2010. This is the what we looked at. So this is in blue, just the frequency of transactions occurring within the month of November. We can see here outgoing far exceeds any other group, incoming and then canceled, and then in red you see the sums of each value. So outgoing negative $437,000, which is again creeping up on that number that management warned us about, and then the incoming around 400,000. So this month was actually in the negative value, and so another look at the November distribution. Outgoing, similar numbers, but you can see the percentage. Outgoing was about 60% of the total transactions for that month. And I do want to say the transaction amounts. So the median transaction amount was about $36, and the mean transaction amount, the total divided by all the transactions, was about $4.40. So the one-way ANOVA was used again in order to compare transactions against each other. All the incoming transactions were compared against each other, and then separately the outgoing transactions were compared. The purpose of this comparison was just to see if there was any significant variation. The reason for that would be any spikes in activity. If there was a significantly large transaction, for example, $100,000 being transacted into someone else's account, and we did not find that. We found they were all within the same range of each other, and so yeah, for incoming and outgoing, no real significant difference among each other. And here's just a summary of the transactions over the month of November. This graph is, I feel like, really telling of what's going on. More than anything we've looked at, this demonstrates what's occurring. It looks to me like a shell operation going on with, you see in red, you see the incoming funds, and then this is basically a mirror image of the red, the outgoing funds. And yes, these should be colored different colors, but the outgoing, I mean, the same ebbs and flows of the incoming, which basically is saying as soon as they're getting money in, they're funneling it right back out. It doesn't seem like it's following any other rhyme or reason other than it's just as soon as they're taking in the money, they're getting rid of it in the same symmetric pattern as how they're getting it. And with a normal operation, we would see asymmetric patterns going on, people paying bills for different operations going on that don't relate to their profit stream, but here it's just flat out a reflection of what's coming in, which I would say is suspect is the other things going on. And so I would say with good confidence, it's believed that the entity in question is suspect of money laundering. With the instances in August and December that we saw, drilling down into the November records to actually get a good picture of the transactions that are occurring are quite suspicious. It doesn't look like they're in it for profit with the amount of outgoing wires that are happening. They did climb up on that $500,000. I mean, they never actually hit the number, but they were within just a couple $1,000s of it. Yeah, and so we could confirm our suspicions a bit more if we dug into those August and December months and looked at those transaction details as well. It would be good to see the parties in question that are receiving and giving funds, but overall our model demonstrates with 95% confidence the differences between the monthly groups can be used in similar cases with other companies compare across a baseline and see if there are suspicious activities going on. So I just want to leave it right there, and thank you guys again for letting us perform this analysis for you. Are there any questions? And have a good day.